photographic image leads us to think of the one who is pictured. But waking up to grasp the visible as an image of the intelligible is not so easy. Here math comes to our aid. Math is a point of entry for a realm of invisible entities that are stable, shared, and knowable. Numbers in geometric shapes are among the most accessible intelligibles. The eye of the soul can see them, focus on them, and so grow stronger. Such entities are objects of knowledge, not mere opinion. 17 is a prime number because reality is that way. That the list of primes is endless is not obvious, but it is demonstrable. Math is the existence proof for the feasibility of intellectual inquiry. If wisdom requires insight, and insight requires inquiry, and math nurtures inquiry, then math draws us toward wisdom. The eye of the soul might also be strengthened by the soul's activity of thinking through, which takes mathematical hypotheses and explicates their necessary consequences. This seeing what follows is training in reasoning. Reasoning is how the soul moves around the intelligible realm. Reasoning gets us accustomed to intelligibility and thus strengthens the eye of the soul. Reasoning also lets us examine our own opinions for inconsistencies, and removing inconsistencies strengthens our vision. Math is a point of arrival up from physical things, also a point of departure up to the forms. Is math specially fitted to raise the intellect to the forms? Take the form of justice. If justice involves getting each his due, does seeing the form of justice depend upon a prior grasp of mathematical proportion? How else could one justly apportion reward to merit? Is number itself, as a multitude of units, the key to understanding the forms, is so-called eidetic numbers? What is an eidetic number, you ask? Well, Joe Sachs' report of Jacob Klein's account of Aristotle's version of an unwritten teaching of Plato says the good is 1, being is 2, the soul is 3, virtue is 4. Think of it this way. An ordinary number is composed of like units. When we think of 2 dogs, each is alike in being a dog. When we think of the pure number 2, it is composed of 2 units that are just alike, each self-identical and distinct from the other. A form as an eidetic number is made of units that are unlike. Being is 2 because being is rest and emotion together, just as the pure number 2 is 1 and 1 together. Our pure numbers, then, the shadowy images that rightly grasped, can lead the soul to understand the structure of the forms. The last thing seen on the intellectual ascent of the divided line is the good. If the good is the measure of all things, it must be a common measure. Is then the mathematical distinction between discrete number and continuous magnitude, with its attendant perplexities about incommensurables, a clue to the vision of the good. Finally, math may be defined as the science of analogy. Is analogy the real basis of Platonism? The world is like a divided line. The good is like the sun. Education is like coming out of a cave. The soul is like a stage. Does the study of analogy through math strengthen the eye of the soul so that it can see the true analogical relations throughout the universe? Now, following the tradition of math textbooks, I leave these questions as exercises for the reader, starred with difficulty. However we answer them, surely for Plato, no one who is unmathematical will become wise, such as the import of the legendary signer with the entrance to his garden of the Muses. Let no one who is unmathematical enter here. Wisdom, at least human wisdom, requires philosophy, and the math is the way into philosophy, though wisdom goes beyond the mathematical. So that is one answer to my question. Now I want to transform the divided line image in 3 ways to represent what I call Aristotelian, Cartesian, and anti-Cartesian answers. These names are more suggestive mnemonics than serious scholarly attributions. Here again, I follow a tradition. This one in philosophy and mathematics, where the term Platonism is used for a doctrine only loosely connected to anything found in the dialogues of Plato. So be warned. In the Aristotelian picture, we keep the line and exchange the positions of the mathematical things and the physical objects. So we just switch these around. There are a few other changes, but that's the main switch. This demotes math in the order of being. For Plato, the basic divide was between intelligible and visible. For Aristotle, the basic divide is between independent primary beings and dependent secondary beings. So his line's upper main part contains substances. The lower part, main part, contains what is predicated or said of about substances. The top part contains forms without matter, the separate substances. Next come forms with matter, the physical things. Mathematicals are abstractions from physical things. Number, shape, size, and movement are the common sensibles, in that they are apprehended by several senses and are common to all physical things. Less common qualitative properties would occupy the lowest part of the line. Aristotle objects to what he considers Plato's number mysticism. Being is two is barely intelligible speech. It must mean being is like to. But Aristotle wants to say not what something is like, but what it is. It is true that being is said in many ways. The primary sense is complete being as substance. Substantial things are actively at work sustaining themselves. Without substantial being, there would be no other being. A quality such as redness, for instance, exists only as an attribute of a substance that is red. Now, natural things, for Aristotle, have an internal principle of motion and rest. Mathematicals have no such principle of motion. Rocks will fall, cattle will stray, but we don't need to tie up our triangles to keep them from wandering away. And unlike in Plato, mathematical clarity fails to track being. A mathematical object may be clear because it is a natural thing's immaterial, immobile limit. And though matter and motion make for unclarity, they are crucial for natural being. Genuine understanding comes only when we apprehend the originating sources, the responsible factors that make a thing be what it is. In short, we understand when we grasp causes. Math, according to Aristotle, fails to provide causal explanations. An Aristotelian formal cause is a being at work, dynamic and active. It is the very actuality that causes a thing to be. A mathematical form, in contrast, is static and inert. Mathematics is precise but unreal. Math, like statistical correlation, does not disclose causes, but wise insight and action depend upon knowing causes. So, on this picture, how much math is needed for wisdom? Some, but not much. Sound Aristotelian advice was given to the young philosopher who was told to learn enough math not to be taken in by it. Math is a tool for the natural scientist, but natural things move, and they don't move by counting. So the Aristotelian scientist as such need not be a mathematician. Math does provide paradigms for systematic thought, both theoretical and practical. Math as deduction from self-evident premises is the model for theoretical science, which explains a fact by deducing it from principles. Math also provides a model for practical thought that, given an end, seeks an act that would produce it. This resembles the analytic method of proving a mathematical theorem. We start with a theorem to prove and work backward to find the conditions that would entail it, and then conditions for those conditions, until we reach a condition that is met. By reversing the sequence, we prove the theorem. Analysis of math is thus a pattern for the practical syllogism, but the math content is unimportant. Math contributes to wisdom only by suggesting logical structures. Wisdom grasps basic principles and ultimate particulars, while math merely treats of derivative points. The next transformation of the divided line I called Cartesian, reminding you that it's not really due to Descartes. The line is divided by Socrates as such that the two middle sections of it, the mathematical and physical section, things